They tried to auction off my $2.3 million ranch for 0 cents while I was burying my father, and then had the nerve to call the cops on me for trespassing on my own land. I cut my dad's funeral short, drove through the night 800 miles, and got home at 6 in the morning to find strangers with clipboards walking my pasture like it was an open house. And standing right in the dirt my grandfather turned with his own hands, a giant for auction sign staked into the yard. Now tell me something, what would you do if your entire family legacy was being sold off while you were still wearing a black suit? My name's Jake Morrison, third-generation cattle rancher here in Colorado. 47 acres of cedar fence, red barn, gravel road, 30 head of cattle, and a whole lot of history. My granddad bought this land back in '67 when it was nothing but wind and stubborn grass. Built every fence post himself. My dad added the barn. I raised my daughter Emma here after my wife Sarah passed from cancer 2 years ago. This place isn't just property, it's memory. It's bone and blood. 3 years ago, they built Maplewood Heights right next door. Big houses, stone entryway, matching mailboxes, the whole community living fantasy. And with it came the HOA. And with the HOA came Karen Whitfield. Now Karen was the kind of woman who measured grass with a ruler. Sent violation letters for Christmas lights still up on January 3rd. Spoke in that tight smile voice like she was always 2 seconds away from saying, "I'd like to speak to your manager." I never joined their HOA. Never signed anything. My ranch predates their little development by decades. But that didn't stop her. First it was my fence encroaching 18 inches into their so-called common area. Then complaints about cattle odor. Yes, ma'am, cows smell like cows in July. Then my gravel driveway somehow violated their median aesthetic. Every month, a new letter, a new threat, fines I never acknowledged. Then last Tuesday, my father dropped dead from a heart attack in Montana. I left that same hour. Emma stayed with a friend. My neighbor, Bill Hendricks, 73 years old, retired county surveyor, agreed to check on the cattle. Thursday night, Emma texted me, "Dad, something's happening at the ranch." That's all it said. I drove through the dark, coffee and grief and anger fighting in my chest. When the mountains finally lit up pink at dawn, and I turned onto my gravel road, I saw 2 men in expensive suits measuring my fence line. And that sign, pre-auction assessment. I walked up slow, boots crunching gravel my grandfather laid 50 years ago. "What exactly are you doing on my property?" One of them barely looked at me. "Sir, this property is scheduled for public auction Saturday." I felt my pulse in my ears. "This is my land." The shorter one smirked. "We have legal authorization." Before I could even pull out my phone, a white Mercedes came flying up the drive in a cloud of dust. Karen stepped out. "Mr. Morrison," she said, smiling like she'd just won bingo, "you're in violation of a court order." "What court order?" She dialed 911 right in front of me. "Hello, yes. There's a trespasser threatening our assessment team." I stood there in my funeral suit, on land my family's owned since 1967, listening to this woman report me for trespassing. Deputy Maria Santos arrived 20 minutes later. She knows my daughter. We sat next to each other at school concerts. She looked confused as hell. Karen handed over a thick folder. $47,000 in accumulated fines. Claims of abandonment. Some nonsense about adverse possession. In reverse. I'd never received a single certified letter. Turns out they'd been emailing the wrong address. "Typo," she said. Bill Hendricks pulled up then, slow and steady like cavalry in an old western. "That fence hasn't moved an inch since 1967, he said, dry as dust. Maria looked between us. "This is a civil matter. No arrest today." But Karen wasn't done. She called an emergency board meeting that afternoon, didn't invite me, and voted 3-1 to proceed with the auction. 3 days after my father's funeral. That's when I realized something. This wasn't about grass or fences. It was about money. Sunday morning, she hosted a pre-auction tour. I sat on my porch with coffee while strangers walked my land. Every time someone approached the house, I stood up. "Hi, I'm Jake. I own this ranch. Interested in buying stolen property." First buyer left immediately. Second hesitated. Third started asking about title insurance. Karen fumbled. Across the street, a 23-year-old kid named Tommy Martinez was filming from his window. He runs a YouTube channel, Rural Real Talk. 47,000 subscribers. He came jogging over. "Jake, this is insane. I'm posting this." I hesitated. I'm not a spotlight guy, but something in me snapped. Let burn in daylight. Tommy went live that night. 800 viewers turned into 8,000. Then local news called. Then state reporters. And here's the twist none of us expected. My 16-year-old daughter, Emma dug through county records and found out there was no auction permit filed. In Colorado, you need one. 30 days in advance. They didn't have it. I called the clerk. Confirmed. They weren't just unethical. They were illegal. I got connected with a property rights attorney, Sarah Chun. Sharp. Calm. The kind of lawyer who smiles when she finds fraud. She pulled the original subdivision plat from 2019. My ranch was explicitly excluded from HOA jurisdiction. Karen had filed an amended extension in 2021 claiming authority over my land. It was never approved. And the survey she used? Forged. The real surveyor, Robert Kumar, nearly exploded when he saw it. That's not my signature. I never touched that property. Identity theft. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. And here's the part that made my stomach turn. Karen's real estate company had an exclusive listing agreement ready for my ranch. Commission? About $140,000. She wasn't trying to enforce rules. She was trying to steal my land. Friday morning, news vans lined the road. Sheriff's deputies stationed at the gate. Tommy live streaming to nearly 50,000 people. Karen showed up in that white Mercedes like nothing had changed. Sarah handed her a court injunction, halting the auction. Karen tore it up on camera. That was the moment she sealed her fate. At 9 sharp, Sheriff Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, this is a valid court order." Robert Kumar publicly confronted her about the forged signature. The crowd gasped. Then 2 black SUVs rolled up. FBI. Agent Rodriguez stepped out calm as winter. "Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted property theft." Handcuffs clicked. You ever hear 200 people cheer at once? It rolls across land like thunder. Dr. Stanton, her vice president, started backing away fast. Turns out he'd invested money in her business. Claimed he didn't know. Jennifer Walsh, the HOA secretary, walked straight to the FBI and handed over months of emails. One of them read, "Once we get Morrison's land, we're set for life." Karen screamed as they loaded her into the SUV. "This isn't over." I walked up, boots crunching gravel. "Karen," I said quietly, "this land's been here 60 years. It'll be here 60 more." She didn't say another word. After the vehicles left, I walked over to that auction sign, grabbed it, and snapped it over my knee. The crack echoed across the valley. That sound that was closure. A month later, she pled guilty. 3 years federal prison. $500,000 in restitution. 17 other homeowners came forward. She'd been bleeding them with fake fines for years. The HOA elected new leadership, issued a public apology, rewrote the bylaws. Transparency, real due process. Property values actually went up. Funny how honesty does that. 6 months later, we hosted a community festival right here on the ranch. Barbecue, live music, 500 people. Raised $47,000 for a legal defense fund, the exact amount she claimed I owed. Poetic, right? Now every evening I sit on my porch and watch the sun dip behind the mountains. Cattle settling down. Fence lines straight and solid where my grandfather put it. And here's what I've learned. Power doesn't become legitimate just because someone prints it on letterhead. Authority without consent is just intimidation wearing a blazer. If I'd stayed silent, if I'd said, "I'm grieving, I'll deal with it later," that sign might have turned into a gavel. Sometimes justice isn't loud at first. Sometimes it starts with a tired rancher standing in a funeral suit saying, "No." The question is how many people lose everything because they don't? So I'll ask you, if someone tried to use paperwork and pressure to erase your family's legacy, how far would you go to fight back? Where's the line between defending what's yours and letting karma handle it? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear them. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA overreach or someone abusing power because they thought you wouldn't push back, tell your story. The more light we shine on this stuff, the harder it is for the next Karen to pull it off. Some things are not for sale. Family land is one of them.